morning again, everyone. I just crossed the Continental Divide. I am now in the desert of New Mexico. Well, I've been in the desert of New Mexico, but I'm on this side of the Great Divide. Behind me is Church Rock. Church Rock is a beautiful example of the desert. One thing we know about the desert is you always know which way the wind is blowing. Without large trees to muffle it or to hide it or to let the directions, when you're in a forest and the wind comes, you're not sure which way it's coming from because it's going through and around trees. But in the desert, the wind comes at you directly. And this is how I feel about myself in life. I'm never worried about an event. The running of a rabbit, the chase of the coyote, whatever desert metaphor you want. What I'm worried about is, or not worried about, that's the wrong word. What I'm aware of is which way the wind is blowing. I think in big terms, like the desert landscape. So someone does something wrong to me once, it's just not a thing to me. I can let that go. All of my friends will attest. I can let little things go easy. But when the wind is in my face, I can hardly ignore it. When I notice trends, when I notice the wind blowing in the same direction all the time, when I know, oh, here comes that westward wind, and it's going to be a strong headwind, and it's going to slow my path, then I'm just very aware of it. Now let's take this into our personal lives. There are people in my life that I don't really have a great conflict with, but I feel like they're a headwind. They just don't have anything nice to say. They don't have anything to contribute. They're always just kind of eroding my mountain face with their pettiness and their drama. Or in the political spectrum, we believe that Joe Biden is on our side. But when we see which way the wind is blowing, it tells us he is more likely to drop bombs than to get minimum wage passed. When we look at the economy and we realize that the Waltons' wealth is growing and the working class is getting poorer, it's not one event, it's not one action, it's which way the wind is blowing the sand, right? The sand wind is creating mounds. Which way the wind is obstructing your path, right? And the rains will come and the watershed moment will come. But it's the winds that are ever present, or when they're not present, you notice they're absent. The air gets still, everything gets loud, you can hear, because you're no longer obstructed by the wind. And I don't want to go off too far with my head, right? I'm going to get comments. I'm so self-conscious about, snottiness in my head and just who I am as a human. But for me, it's like this great mountain face. I'm eroded by wind, and I can't ignore it, right? And a lot of people think I'm confrontational, but not really. Like, I go out, I drink beer, friends say dumb shit, and it just rolls off my back, right? It doesn't bother me. But when the wind keeps blowing in one direction, then I start to notice and it starts to affect me. And I think I need to build a shelter on that side of my house to keep the wind out, right? I need to protect my mountain face from this wind that's going to just chap my hide, the wind that's going to erode away what I'm trying to build. And so I don't fear the rain. I don't fear the watershed. I don't fear the flood. I fear the wind. These great mountains are not made by water erosion. They're made by wind erosion. The water actually solidifies the desert. When the water lands on the desert floor, when water hits the desert floor, it creates a crust. And until that crust is broken, it actually doesn't erode by the wind, right? It's the passage of people or animals or events that create the erosion, the breaking, and then the wind carries it away, like that bag blowing. Let's take a moment to reflect on Church Rock. There's some cool graffiti right there. There's a train. There's a water tank. There's a highway behind me that connects the country. We are interconnected. We need to think about how the wind affects us, as how, and what I mean by this is how the large things affect us. Yes, there are rivers, there are streams, but even a large river, maybe a mile across, maybe 2 miles across, it's limited in the damage it does. It's limited in the life it creates, even though it's bountiful. But the wind is everywhere. The wind is big. The rock face is big. And we need to think about our world in big terms. Think about what's causing the damage. Think about what is making our voyage harder than it should. Let's think about our community around us and who is rock solid and who's just blowing in the wind. Anyway, I don't mean to wax metaphorical. We are going to get into serious building and serious doing, but this is very spiritual for me. It's my journey through the desert. It's like a returning home to see who I am and what I am and to realize that, yeah, I launch a lot of thunder. I get angry and I storm, right? But it's the wind that drives it. The wind drives it. Anyway, thank you for your time. I will catch you later.